What's going on, everybody? My name is Wimberley, and this is Working with Wimberley. And I recently had a big job on an Escalade. I had a flashing check engine light for a bad fuel injector. So I decided, instead of taking it to the shop, that I'm going to do the job myself. And it was a bit tricky, but I'm going to show you guys everything that I did from beginning to end. I'm going to show you the things that I did right and the things that I did wrong. So let's get into it. I'm going to be replacing the number 8 fuel injector on the Escalade, and to do that I need to take off this air intake on the front. I need to take off the upper intake manifold. Once I get that off, I should have access to the fuel rail and the fuel injectors. I'm going to put you guys on time lapse. I'm taking this off. It's pretty straightforward. You know, you have your typical hose clamp and everything like that to get that off. The upper intake manifold is held on with 10mm bolts. I believe there's 10 of them. There's one kind of tucked way in the back that might be a little tricky, but I'm sure we'll be able to get that out. And of course, all of your various connectors and things will need to come off. And one of the things also is where the wiring harness is clipped on. I'm going to have to unclip the wiring harness from all these spots, like there, and it's even like that around the back. But once we get the harness off, going to get all the bolts out and get the upper intake manifold out. Everything starts off nice and easy, just using a flathead screwdriver to loosen the hose clamps, and I'm just working my way around trying to get off the intake. Again, this part is pretty simple, just getting the intake out. And now I'm disconnecting the electrical connectors, and I'm unclipping the wiring harness from the intake manifold. There's quite a few connectors, so just make sure you take your time and you don't miss anything. And after that, I got all of the bolts loose on the intake. So now it's loose, and what I'm doing here is just pulling it forward, because the harness is clipped into the back of it. So you have to just kind of blindly work behind it and unclip the wiring harness. Once you do that, you'll be able to pull the intake all the way out. So now with the intake out, I'm going to vacuum everything up before I move any further. Just want to make sure that nothing drops down into the intake. And now I'm loosening the 4 bolts from the fuel rail. And now I'm loosening the fuel lines that go to the fuel rail. I didn't do anything to get the pressure out of the fuel lines before I loosened them. There wasn't a lot of pressure, it just kind of dripped out, so it really wasn't a big deal. And now I'm going ahead and covering the intake ports. So this is a short video of how this job was supposed to go. Couple pry bars, pry up on it back and forth, and it comes out. This is another video on YouTube. Took a guy maybe 45 seconds to do this, but that was not how it worked out for me and my uncle. I'm not going to show you guys 45 minutes of us fooling around with this, but we were at this for probably 45 minutes trying to pry out this fuel rail. These injectors were like seized in there. They weren't budging at all. And initially I thought, you know, we'll get the rail out, it'll be fine. I'll replace the one injector and put it back. But after, you know, working on it for so long, I just knew that we were going to have to destroy this thing to get it out. And that's exactly what we did. Bent up the fuel rail, broke all of the fuel injectors, but I wasn't too worried about it, because even if I had to buy a new fuel rail and 4 new injectors, it still was going to be way more affordable than it would have been to just take it to a shop and let them do it. And also, I get a new fuel rail and 4 new injectors out of it as well. I don't regret doing it this way. We got it out, and I just bought a new rail and 4 new injectors to go in. And while you're prying on this, you really do need to be careful. The one thing I had to reuse was the wiring harness, and thankfully we did not damage that, so I was able to use it on the new fuel rail. So finally, we get the fuel rail out. I have the old fuel rail right here, and the new one is inside the box, and I have 4 new injectors. They come with the seals and the hardware. The only thing we're gonna have to reuse from over here is the wiring harness and the 4 bolts. So I'm just gonna put you guys on time lapse, and I'm gonna put the new one together exactly the way the old one came out. So for reassembly, I literally just used the old one for reference. I made sure everything was in the exact same place. It was oriented in the same direction. I didn't take any chances here. Since I ended up replacing all 4 injectors, I did not have to install new seals. They come with new seals on them when you buy them new. Here's the old fuel rail. I have the new one right here with the wiring harness transferred over, and also the 4 bolts transferred over. Everything else is new injectors, new seals, new clips. So this is now ready to go back into the Escalade. Another step that we have to do is with the intake. We need to replace the gaskets. I have 8 new gaskets right here. So I just need to pop these old ones out and pop the new ones in. So this is super simple. The old ones just pop out and you just put the new ones in. There was no challenge here. This was probably the easiest part of the job. With the fuel rail ready to go in and the gaskets on the intake, that's ready to go. I have 2 new fuel lines for the passenger side. They're one-time use. Didn't need to do one on the driver's side because I didn't take that apart. And here are the 2 lines right here. So one here and the other one's here. Before I put the parts in, I'm just going to make sure I give everything a good clean. So reassembly is just the opposite of what you did to take it out. We had a bit of trouble getting the fuel injectors to go deep down enough into the head so that we can catch the 4 bolts. But once we were able to do that, we just tightened each bolt a little at a time to make sure there was even pressure till we got it all the way seated. And here is the biggest mistake I made. When I put the new lines back on, I did not tighten them enough. There's a lot of pressure in these lines and you need to make sure that they're good and tight or you will have leaks. So I ended up having to take the upper intake manifold off again, go back, tighten the lines back down really good, and then I put it back on and I was fine after that. So don't make the mistake I did. Make sure that you get those lines good and tight. So this is just a reassembly process. And I want to say it was an honor getting the chance to work with my uncle on this project. In the beginning of the video, there's a picture in the background. That's him in the middle, my dad on the right, and I'm on the left. Really want to thank my uncle for all of his help and support over all of the years, and I'm glad to be able to get him in the video. And now we're just buttoning everything up, just checking everything, getting all the connectors together. Going to get the intake together, and that pretty much sums us up. After I put it all together, now it's time to go for a test drive. All right, Unc, you hop in. Let's go for a spin around the block. All right, so that's it. The Escalade is fixed. Go ahead and start it up. We'll take it for a ride around the block. So the job is done. It was kind of tricky, but thankfully I had the help of my uncle. And to be honest with you, if a fuel injector goes bad on the driver's side, I would do it again. It wasn't too intimidating and too complex that it's something that I don't think people could tackle. If you have some experience working on cars and you know, you're just kind of not afraid to give it a shot, I think you can definitely do this job yourself and save yourself a lot of money. So, if you found this video helpful, be sure to give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. God bless you all.